How's everybody doing today? Welcome. Thanks for stopping by. I'm Steven. I'm one of the beverage managers over here at Kierden 18th and 21st. Right now we are all locked down in our houses. We're doing carry-out food, we're doing delivery, we're doing some cocktails to go. The liquor board has set up that we are allowed to sell a bunch of different things that we weren't normally allowed to sell to go. We're doing some wine to go, beer, growlers, all that fun stuff. But what I wanted to do was take a minute and teach you how to make a cocktail that you can most likely make at your own house. It doesn't have a ton of ingredients. You're not having to shop all over the place to find weird stuff. This is pretty straightforward, and it is one of the most classic cocktails out there. So what we're going to talk about today is an old-fashioned. One of our top-selling cocktails here is our smoked old-fashioned. It gets involved in a whole nother realm where you're smoking bitters and doing all kinds of fun stuff. We're going to teach you how to do a little bit of that. Smoking aside, we're going to teach you some of the ingredients like our brown sugar simple syrup. But I'm going to walk you through how to make this old-fashioned. This old-fashioned is kind of how we make old-fashions. It's a very base recipe. If somebody is looking for an old-fashioned and they don't want our smoked old-fashioned, this is how we go about doing it. But I think it's a really easy and fun cocktail to play around with. And so that's what we're going to do today. In a traditional old-fashioned, you're going to have something sweet, something strong, something bitter, and water. Your water can be water, but most traditionally it's going to be ice cubes. Your something bitter is going to be bitters. We use angostura and orange bitters. Your something sweet is going to be some sort of simple syrup. So at home it may be simple syrup. We use a brown sugar simple syrup here because it plays off the bourbon really well. And then the last thing is your something strong, and that can be any booze. In this instance for us it's going to be bourbon. But you can kind of play with that. You can change the bourbon out for Scotch or rye whiskey, or you can go a little bit off the wall and you can go into rums. Dark rums make really fun, or gold rums make really fun old fashions. And then you can get even crazier and you can go into gin, and you can go into tequila or mezcal, and you can kind of play around with those things. Basically anything that you've got in your liquor cabinet you can make an old fashioned out of if you want to make it the base spirit. You just need to create like complementary flavors over top of it. So Old Fashions, they are one of the original cocktails that are out there, and Old Fashions are not actually named after the cocktail, they're named after the glass. So when cocktails were first being invented, basically what happened was you would walk into a bar and there weren't crazy kooky names for cocktails. There wasn't the Bijou and the Jungle Bird and the whatever. You would walk into a bar and you'd say, hey, I had that cocktail that guy makes in that old-fashioned glass. Can I get that old-fashioned cocktail? Or hey, I had that cocktail down at the Manhattan Club. Is there any way you can make that Manhattan cocktail? And as these cocktails grew in notoriety and grew in name, they kind of spanned across the country so that people then knew how to make a Manhattan or a Negroni or a Martinez or whatever the classic cocktail was. But the cocktail was never meant to be based off of a kooky name. The cocktail was almost always meant to be based off of just what they called it. When you flip through old school cocktail books, a lot of the cocktail books will be, the cocktails will be fancy gin cocktail or gin with champagne cocktail. They're not looking to, Vince's demise and the, whatever. They were all just kind of very simply named, and the idea was the more that they've got picked up, things like champagne cocktail, things like Manhattan, things like Old Fashioned, those all carried on, but they were all named after either the glass they were in, where they were invented, whatever it might be, and so that's kind of where the Old Fashioned comes about. But so we're going to build an Old Fashioned today. The recipe I use is very simple, mostly because I don't want to ever have to think about it too much when I'm making these. These are great kind of everyday cocktails, and so what I do when I'm at home is my recipe is 2, 2, 2, and a bar spoon. And so you're not having to think about what the build is and if it's a quarter ounce of this and a half ounce of that. It's just kind of very straightforward. So the things we're going to use today are these guys right here. We're going to use Elijah Craig. This one is not our single barrel, but we have a single barrel of Elijah Craig. There's probably about, maybe 15 to 18 ounces of it left. We have another single barrel picked out that'll show up sometime in the fall, probably now at this point. You're using Angostura bitters. Angostura bitters you can find in pretty much any grocery store. And so when you are locked down in your house and you can only go to the grocery store or the liquor store, Angostura bitters are ones that you can find. Angostura also makes an orange bitter. In our instance, we won't be using Angostura's bitters. We'll be using Fee Brothers bitters. Fee Brothers are fun because they don't use alcohol to extract their flavor. They use glycerin oil. And so if you're making somebody a mocktail, or you're using bitters to cook with, or for a kid's drink or whatever, there's no alcohol in those, so they're actually completely safe for that. And then the last thing we use is brown sugar simple syrup. So we make our brown sugar simple syrup. We use 1 box of dark brown sugar to 1 quart of water, and then we let it reduce a little bit so that it picks up a little bit more viscosity. Something fun to trade out for that would be like maple syrup if you have it in the house. Molasses might be a little bit too rich, but you can kind of create that profile. If you don't want to use brown sugar simple syrup, you can make regular simple syrup. It's just 1-to-1 sugar to water. So you put them on a stove, you turn the heat up, you stir them, you let it kind of come to a boil. When the liquid turns clear, turn it off, let it cool, and you'll be ready to go. So with all that said, I'll show you how to make this, and then it'll be kind of up to you to start here and get kooky, get crazy. An old fashioned, if you want to have an old fashioned every single night, or 3 a night, or whatever you want, is something that you can absolutely change up with every single one. You can get a million different kinds of bitters. You can do a bunch of different adjuncts in your simple syrup. So you could do brown sugar with cinnamon or clove or nutmeg, or you could do a curry simple syrup, or you could do whatever you want, and every single one is gonna just be something to complement the base spirit. So the first thing you're gonna need is you're gonna need 2 ounces of bourbon, rye, Scotch, whatever you decide is your base component, and that goes right into the glass. Like I said, the whole idea with this is to make it as non-complicated as possible. It's something that you want to be able to make kind of any day, anytime, and not have to dirty a bunch of glasses and mixing tins and whatever. Then you're going to do 2 dashes of angostura bitters, 2 dashes of orange bitters, and then a bar spoon. So a bar spoon is technically a teaspoon. So if you don't have a bar spoon at home, you can just use a teaspoon of brown sugar simple syrup. You can use more, you can use less. I like a teaspoon, it's a good amount. It's got a little bit of sweetness, but it's not like overly sweet. If you like a sweeter cocktail, you can absolutely use more brown sugar. If you like a drier cocktail, you can use none. And then your ice, we're using a large ice cube, but your ice goes right into the glass. You don't need to worry about getting a shaker out and all that fun stuff. The whole point of this is that you are just kind of building everything in the glass. Give it a nice little stir, get the ice moving around, get everything a little bit cooler in there. Doesn't need a ton of effort, and honestly, you don't even have to stir it. The stirring cools it down immediately, but you can just sip on it. It'll get cool on its own, and then you're gonna put a single cherry. If you can find them, these are called Luxardo cherries. Luxardo cherries are they're gonna change your life. They are just super delicious, dark, rich. They complement the flavor profile that we've already created. And then a single orange peel. If you have a peeler, great. If you don't, be very careful, but you can take it off with a knife. You want to take as little of that white pith. The pith is what's bitter, so the longer it sits, the more it'll make the drink a little bit bitter. And then you want to take shiny side towards the glass, fold it like a hot dog roll. You'll see the oils kind of hit the top of it. Twist it, run the orange around the inside and outside of the glass. Now when you stick your nose in that, you're going to get all that orange. Drop that orange peel in there, and then you're ready to go. So that is the old fashioned. We're going to have some other videos for you teaching you how to make some other cocktails, but I think this is a good place to start. This is the classic cocktail. It is one of the first ones that was ever created, and it's something that you can make, you can mess with, you can find your own perfect recipe. You can make it boozier or sweeter or bitter or whatever, just adjusting those levels, or you can take the orange bitters out and put cranberry bitters or chocolate bitters or whatever it might be, and then you can go crazy. If you get a lot of time on your hands and this quarantine goes on forever, you can start making your own bitters, you can start messing with your own simple syrups, all that fun stuff. So once again, I'm Steven. We're over at Cured. We're here if you need any food, beverages, whatever it might be. But if you're at home and you need something to drink, that's the old fashioned. Thanks so much.